What's up everyone, Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we dive in, of course, just a couple quick things. Check out my website, btcsessions.ca. That's where you can reach out to me directly, book your own session. We can chat about Bitcoin, wallets, proper security, anything you like. All you need to do is scroll to the bottom and there is a contact form for you. Beyond that, you can check out my Teespring link and you can grab some swag if you like. That'll be in the links down below as well. And one thing I'm starting to do here is I'm starting to mention something that I find useful in the Bitcoin and crypto space personally every show. And right now I am going to be mentioning the Cool Wallet S. So I did a video on this a little while back, about a year ago in March of 2018, and after I did my tutorial video, I didn't touch it for a while, but it's gradually become one of my daily uses. It just gives me that extra bit of security when it comes to my mobile wallet, because I like to have some Bitcoin accessible on my phone, but I do worry about it getting stolen, and this credit card size device now comes with me so that I have that kind of two-factor authentication to my Bitcoin on my phone. Now it does hold a lot of other assets, but of course I tend to just use Bitcoin, but I found it to be pretty intuitive and very easy to use, and the form factor is pretty hard to beat. So if you want to check it out, I do have a link for that down below as well. It's also on my website. If you go to btcsessions.ca and you hit products, that's where I'm going to start putting things that I find useful and I use in my day-to-day life. Right now it's not super populated because I haven't put a lot in there yet, but I will start to grow that over time so that things that I think are cool can be featured there. But with that said, let's dive into the news. So first up, I wanted to touch on the Blockstream Green wallet. They just dropped this recently. This is an article from, is that today? Is that today? No, that was yesterday. Yesterday, they dropped this article and they essentially updated what used to be Green Wallet or Green Bits, depending on which iOS or Android, depending on which platform you were on. But they've essentially created this wallet and they're going to be phasing out the other two in favor of this Blockstream Green wallet. Now, what does this wallet have in particular? It's meant to be easy for basic users, but it's also meant to have a lot under the hood as far as a lot of features for power users. So there is a list here. So of course, you know, they've overhauled all the UX and the branding and everything. They've got multi-sig two-factor authentication, which you can pair with a second key being on their servers, which is very interesting. They do support hardware wallets. So right now they have support for the Ledger Nano S and the Trezor 1, but they will be rolling out support for the newer models of both of those devices over time. And I hope to see actually other devices as well. I'd love to see stuff like Open Diamond Cold Card, but I guess time will tell. Now, they support a lot of different languages, and now some of the more detailed and feature-rich, or rather, I guess, power user features would be stuff like this. So watch-only wallets, so you can watch a wallet, just the balance and receive payments without having access to spend. So that comes in handy if you just want to see your balance and be able to accept payments, but you don't want the risk of losing your phone and losing your funds. Fee control. So they have RBF, which is replaced by fee. So in times of I guess high network traffic where you go to send a transaction and maybe you attached a really low fee and you find it's taking longer than you would like and you need that transaction to get through quickly, you can adjust your fee after the fact, which is a feature that a lot of wallets do not have. So nice to have there. Two-factor thresholds, so you can set your wallet so that if you want to spend up to a certain amount, then you don't need to do a PIN or anything like that. But then beyond that amount, you would need you know, a second factor, a second authentication factor, some sort of a PIN or a hardware or anything like that. So I think that's pretty interesting. Also, they have support for Tor, so you can connect Green Wallet over Tor on Android only right now. Some of the other stuff that I really like is that they allow you to plug into your own node, which is really, really great. I think that's something that should be pushed in a lot of wallets. I know Samurai does that. I know a few others do, but it would be really nice to see that across the board for people that choose to do so. So I just downloaded this today. I'm starting to play around with it, so it doesn't have my seal of approval yet, but I'm sure at some point I will be doing a full walkthrough and kind of review of this wallet. So I look forward to doing that, but in the meantime, it does look pretty nice. So I have high hopes. Let's hope that I'm impressed. Let's move on. More fun out of the JP Morgan camp. So a JP Morgan Chase executive essentially came to say that crypto innovators will eventually have to use a bank to move funds. So let's just kind of unpack a couple of quotes here. So in response to on CNBC, a host kind of prodding him and saying, well, how are you going to keep up when cryptocurrency is able to do most of the same things as you guys are doing, but more efficiently and for lower fees? He said, ultimately, behind the scenes, the crypto innovators are going to have to use a bank to move funds. There's more partnership instead of competition in that space. When it comes to margins and capabilities, payments is never something that grows in margin. Nobody wants to pay for a payment. That's one of the hardest parts of this process. You have limited resources in the capability to sell, so you need highly efficient and large players. We'll get to that in a second. Then they were prodding him and kind of asking about, well, isn't this kind of a U-turn from Jamie Dimon essentially bashing Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in the early days? And his response was, I think there's a difference between trading a cryptocurrency in the market that's ubiquitous versus using the technology to enhance your payments infrastructure. We look at the technology as being a means to doing things faster and cheaper. Every CEO would like to make things faster and cheaper. So from that standpoint, I think it represents a buy-in to the concept of using blockchain. So when I look at this and I hear this, I really think that they don't really recognize what's coming. Because he's talking about, well, eventually you're just going to have to use a bank. Why? So much is already being automated when it comes to payments infrastructure. And I mean, if you're trying to point at base layer and saying that's not going to scale, then you get stuff like Lightning Network that's starting to scale up, where you can have potentially millions of transactions per second, and the only constraint is your internet bandwidth. And I think it's going to be a big slap in the face over time as these guys really realize how much of their jobs and their infrastructure can be automated, because I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface of what can be replaced, but what can be totally outdone and what features can be built on top of that the banks would never be able to replicate. And in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we'll look back and we'll say, oh, well, it was all so obvious. But at the time right now, of course, it's going to be difficult for a JP Morgan Chase executive to see that, because he has built everything around them providing that service. And when you're entrenched in that, your livelihood depends on you only believing in what you've built. And if you believe something different, then you have to admit to yourself that you're on the way out. And I think that's what these guys are having a hard time doing. Obviously, they still exist right now. The infrastructure for Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, has not been built out to the point where tomorrow you could just turn off banks and slide into the new paradigm. But I do think it's coming. And I think it will hit this inflection point where everybody goes, oh my God. And it will be like, oh, Blockbuster's doing fine. We could buy Netflix, but nah, that's fine. We're not going to deal with that. We'll do our own thing. And then bankrupt overnight. So We'll see. We'll see. I'm looking forward to that transition. Let's move on. So, speaking of banking in relation to cryptocurrency, this is a company called BlockFi. I've been hearing a lot about it recently. I know they're featured on the What Bitcoin Did podcast as a sponsor. And I'm a little conflicted regarding what they're doing and how they're doing it. I kind of lean on the side of being unsure and skeptical and a little worried. So what does BlockFi do? Well, essentially, they allow you to deposit your Bitcoin and Ether and earn interest on it, which sounds attractive to a lot of crypto investors, apparently, because since January, they've attracted more than $35 million worth of cryptocurrency that is now in their possession. And so what do they then do with that cryptocurrency? Well, they lend it out. So they lend it out to institutional investors. They'll borrow the cryptocurrency with individualized terms, and they can they have interest rates of 4 to 12%. And BlockFi can call in those loans at any time. So one of the more scary aspects of this is that BlockFi is not shy about saying that they are engaging in rehypothecation. Now, what is rehypothecation? This is when you pledge to lend something, in this instance, Bitcoin or Ether. You pledge to lend the Bitcoin or Ether to one individual, but then you take that same Bitcoin or Ether and you lend it to a second individual at the same time, essentially doubling the amount that is said to be held in reserves. And in other words, you're looking at fractional reserve here. And I don't like going down this road when it comes to cryptocurrency. Now, I'll tell you why it scares me, but I also will tell you why I think that in this case, eventually it may be self-correcting. So number one, I don't like it because it, according to Caitlin Long, she's from Wyoming and she has a lot to do with the regulation there. But she thinks it's the antithesis to the promise of Bitcoin, which was the 21 million cap, the hard money aspect of this is the amount that there ever will be and there will never be more. When you get something like rehypothecation, no, you're not inflating the base amount, but in a way, you're creating more supply out of nothing. And that's kind of what banks do when central banks, of course, can print money all they like. But on top of that money printing from the central banks, banks themselves can lend out multiple times what they're holding in their vaults, or rather, what's actually held in vaults anymore. Really, they can lend out the money that is in reserves multiple times over, which is fractional reserve. And same thing happens with things like gold contracts, where somebody says they have a contract. I have this slip of paper that means that I own a bar of gold in your vault, but that bar of gold has actually 10 slips of paper allocated to it across 10 different people. And so you get this kind of multiplication of what's actually there. With something like gold, it is very difficult to audit that, and it's very time-consuming and difficult to demand delivery of the underlying asset. And so this gets into a little bit of why I think it may be self-correcting over time, is that Bitcoin has neither of those problems. One, it's very easy to audit in real time. So let's imagine their BlockFi is wildly successful, and over time lots of companies like this pop up in the space and they all start doing rehypothecation. Well, at some point there's going to be more Bitcoin rehypothecated and lent out than can ever exist. And so you may see an instance where there are, 22 million Bitcoin that have been lent out. And the market can see that and audit it in real time and say, well, this company's saying they have this much, this company's saying they have this much. And just do some simple addition and then go, well, that's more Bitcoin than currently exist. So somebody's lying, and we know that, probably a number of them are insolvent if people were to try and reclaim their Bitcoin. And I think that easy auditability may trigger a bank run. And what happens in a bank run when you can't just print more money? There's no lender of last resort. There's no central bank that can say, oh, there's a bank run. Oh no, we'll figure it out. We'll bail out the banks. We'll print more Bitcoin for them. That doesn't happen in this case. And when it comes to Bitcoin also, it's very easy to demand physical delivery. It shouldn't take that long. The 10-minute block time at the very most, if maybe a couple of days if they need to access their deep cold storage and dust off their hardware wallets or whatever they need to do. But it's very easy to demand that delivery. And so in an instance like that, I think that it would spiral out of control quicker than companies like this imagine, because there is no safety net, and you may see things like that, not immediately. It's super early days. But if this becomes a trend over time, I think that may be the end game. And I think Bitcoin could be that Trojan horse that makes its way into the legacy financial infrastructure, only to realize that it's going to destroy everything when people try to take the practices of our legacy financial institutions and put them on top of Bitcoin, because that shit's not going to work. People are able to see what's there, and I worry about leaving my money with third parties like this. Well, in general, I think it's best to be in control of your own coins, not your keys, not your coins, right? So those are my thoughts here. I encourage you to take a look at this article and take a look at other things, but the stuff like this scares me, mostly for people that have money sitting there, and shit may not hit the fan for a long time, but when you get into rehypothecation, it's scary with an asset that cannot be easily printed. Let's move on here. This is just a quick one that I wanted to touch on. So CoinMarketCap, a website that basically catalogs various cryptocurrencies, their market caps, their fluctuations, all kinds of metrics about them. So they're launching indices on Nasdaq, Bloomberg, Reuters, and some others. And so they will be essentially an indices of the top 200 cryptocurrencies by market cap. There's actually going to be two indices. One will include Bitcoin, and interestingly, another one will not include Bitcoin because it has such a large percentage, about half of the total cryptocurrency market cap worldwide, that it tends to skew some of the measurements that these indices would be tracking. So by taking Bitcoin out, it's quite a bit more stable typically than a lot of these other cryptocurrencies. So by taking that 50% out and focusing on that bottom 50%, you'll likely see a lot more fluctuation. So this will probably show two things. In bull markets, it will probably show the insane volatility in an upward direction where people can make stupid amounts of money if they just throw money at the wall. But it will also very much highlight the absolute devastation that happens again in the bear markets. And so I kind of look forward to being able to see these two indices side by side and see the difference that Bitcoin brings to the table when it's incorporated and when it is not. But yeah, cool to see more people will be exposed to that. And I mean, having these indices on Bloomberg and Nasdaq and Reuters, I think it just will bring legitimacy to Bitcoin. And with the two separate ones, I think it may outline in the long term, some of the negatives of straying from Bitcoin and diving into altcoins. But time will tell. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching. Just a couple quick things again. Be sure check out my website if you like, the Teespring. If you want to check out Cool Wallet S, links to that down below. And if you like what you see, if you enjoy this show, you can do a couple things. One, please do hit subscribe if you're new here. Welcome. Two, hit that notification bell if you want to keep seeing these videos every time they air. I do a premiere. I'm always in the side chat there, chatting with people as it premieres for the first time. So be sure to pop in there, hit that notification so you can come chat with me. And beyond that, hit a like. And if you really like what you see, you can drop me a Lightning Network tip at tippin.me/@BTC Sessions. That'll be linked down below as well. If you don't know how to do that, I made an instruction video on how to use tippin.me, and I will link that in the cards and down below as well. And with that, I am out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow for your daily session.